right there. Yeah, thanks everybody for that. And I totally agree about community. That's one of the things I've been talking about with people is community. I do think community is really essential for our well-being. And particularly in our society, it's something that people lose sight of, and sometimes people get maybe there's a lot of different ways you can lose your way, right? But maybe people get too caught in the materialism stuff and think that that's going to provide fulfillment instead of actual human beings, and actual human connection and actual human intimacy. Um, yeah, I think it's really important to have a sense of community. And if you can be, if if you can have a community that's has a sense of purpose, and the sense of purpose is positive transformation, I think that's the best kind of community. Because you can have community where, oh, we all do heroin together. There's all kinds of different kinds of community, right? But
Mhm.
if you can have a community that has a positive sense of transformation, that's the best. That's the best community to be a part of. So it does feel valuable and important to. What did you say, Robin? That I'm very committed to it, or something like that.
You are very, let's see, loyal or
Loyal. It
yeah.
feels like something that's valuable to be loyal to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of positive transformation, I wanted to share a few things about positive transformation and about manifestation, and some things, with coaching clients that I've seen bring positive transformation and bring manifestation. So just hit a couple different things um, about that, and then just open up if there's anything they want to follow up with or anything they want to delve into. By the way, hi Darian. And thanks for all your great contributions last week. Great to see you again. I see my son is poking around here as well. Great to have him
Oh,
him with us.
good. I really like your son.
I was talking to somebody. I won't say that. Well, I don't think they care if I say their name, but just in case, I won't say their name. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said I really like when Gio's on, and he really has great wisdom to share and great insights, and I like his share. So you have some fans, Gio.
The
So
apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
yeah. Okay, so a couple things. I think the first thing is there's a vision. You feel a vision. You feel a dream, right? You have a dream. You have a vision. Um, Now, many people don't feel like they have any dream or any vision, or it's blocked, or it's in there subconsciously, or it's trapped, or they can't access it, or they're confused, right? So this is why, like, so much of my work is about um, accessing that place of quieting the mind, accessing that place of inner silence, accessing that place of inner stillness inside. And there's different ways we can do that, right? But when you can access that place where you start to get quiet inside and you reach a place of inner stillness inside, then sort of like your authentic dreams, right? Not the dreams, because there's stuff that maybe like our parents told us that we should do, or the school or the whatever the different outside forces told us that we should do. But there's something authentic inside ourselves that, we're here for a purpose. We're here to express our gifts in this world. So when we get quiet, and this is, by the way, why a lot of people don't want to get quiet, because they don't want to tap into what their true vision is in their life, what their true dreams are, because they'll discover that they're not living those things, and that will feel painful. Um, but when you do get quiet, you really can ask the question, kind of ties in what we were talking about last week about prayer, right? Where you can kind of really ask that question from this place of quietude and stillness, then you'll hear what what you're called to, what your vision is, what's your vision, what's your dream. Could be more than one thing, of course, and it could be in all those different areas we talked about. It could be, physically, it could be mentally, it could be in relationship, it could be in work, it could be financially, it could be home, just to mention a few, right? It could be all these different areas of our life, and they're all interconnected and interrelated. So you start to really hone into, this is my dream, this is my vision, this is what I'm called to. Um, And then there can be a lot of stuff that comes up around that, right? Um, Doubts, fears, worries, this kind of stuff. But I think the next thing, once you have the vision, which can be hard to access that, right? Once you have the vision or you have the dream, the next thing is to become that person, right? To access that part of yourself where you're the person that is compatible, vibrationally compatible with that dream, with that vision. Um, so a lot of this is using the power of imagination. I think it's this is a tremendous power that we were given that um, we can really use and we can access to take us to amazing places. Um, so that's one thing we can use is the power of our imagination to envision, the kind of person we're called to. But we could use examples in a lot of different these areas, and we can do that, as we progress here. But the um, the area that came to me to give an example of is the relationship realm. So I know in my life, for example, um, uh, that realm. So I'll use the example of my wife. She's on the call right now. So meeting her, and then there's a feeling of like you want to have a quality woman in your life. So you meet this woman that's an amazing woman, and then you think, okay, well, in order to have this relationship with her, I need to be a quality man. I need to be an amazing. I need to be at the same level vibrationally as she is. And I find this is the drive for inspiration in many people's lives. It could be a romantic interest. It could be a son. It could be a daughter. It could be there's somebody that it's. I think a lot of times if it's just yourself, it's not really enough to. For some people, it is. They just had that inner drive, so to speak. But I think it's this inspiration to transcend or transform or to change our lives for the better often comes because we want to be a better person for somebody else, and we'll make changes in our life, and so I tend to use extreme examples just because it's easy to understand, and you know but if you have if you want to be with uh I'm also using the example of a man because I think it's a little bit different for a woman, and I'm not a woman, so I want to focus on the man part of the man for the moment. Um, out our If you have a an addiction of some kind, you have an alcohol addiction or a porn addiction or a drug addiction or something like this, this is gonna limit you, right? From being with that quality woman. So you think, okay, well, I have to make a change in my life, right? To be with this person. Um, so that drives you, and then you sort of imagine like, you know, what kind of person do I want to become? What kind of person am I called to be? And you can kind of get the vision of the person that matches the vision and the dream, right? So those two things sync up, and then the the next thing is, well, how do I become that person, right? What's the strategy? What's the plan? So this is kind of like the practical part. What's the lifestyle? What do I do to get there? So a kind of a simple practical example would be if somebody wants to get physically fit, right? So if you want to get physically fit, then you could say, okay, I'm going to work out the gym 4 to 5 times, or whatever, 4 or 5. Let's say, for example, 4 times a week. I'm gonna walk an hour a day, 5 times a week. I'm gonna cut out junk food. I'm gonna eat this specific kind of diet, and and it's like a lot of times the way to get to these things is not some mystical thing. It's like it's pretty like straight. It's pretty tried and true. It's like it's kind of like you sort of know that, okay, if I do these things, I'll get to this place, right? As physical is probably the most um, pragmatic component. Maybe some of these other things are a little bit more esoteric, but it's the key part then is the next part, which is how do I do these things consistently, right? What's gonna allow me to do these things consistently to because some of these things are if you have a big vision, then it might take you doing things consistently every day for 5 years, to get to or 10 years or 20 years, So the question is like, how do you maintain that kind of focus? I think that's a real challenge, right? Because there's so many ways to get distracted. And it's just like, well, I don't feel like doing that today. I don't feel like doing that this whole month. You know what I mean? It's like, so what's gonna pull you? And that's one thing we were talking about yesterday in the men's mastermind is push versus pull, right? So there's like you're pushing yourself towards a goal, and the pushing is like a lot of effort, a lot of force, a lot of struggle. It's all coming from inside yourself, right? So this is where people can burn out. They can get exhausted. They can get tired out. And then the pull is literally like you're being pulled, like you're holding on and you're just being pulled. So this is kind of like a spiritual connection. Like you feel like something larger than you is pulling you toward this vision, toward this dream. God is pulling you towards something that you're called to be in this life. And so that when you come to it from this place, it's not tiring in the way the constant push is. It's actually like you're just allowing yourself to be pulled in the vision of this higher dream, of this higher vision. And so I think that makes a big difference, kind of that shift internally. But then having that kind of accountability um, to just check yourself that on a daily basis you're doing the things that move you towards your visions, your dreams, the things you're called to become. One thing I wanted to mention too about the vision and the dream is sometimes and this is hard to put into words, but there's like this question of like, well, how do I know if it's the right vision or how do I know if it's the right dream? Right. Like I said, it's hard to put into words, but there is some kind of like actual feeling in the body. Like people will say like, oh, that just gave me chills. That's one I've heard quite a bit recently, right? Like, oh, it gave me chills when you said that. That's a sign that okay, that's the right dream for you. That's the right vision for you, right? So it kind of how does it feel inside yourself? And some people are very disconnected from their dreams, from their visions. They have a lot of trauma from childhood, for example, where they were told that all kinds of various things that these things are bad to aspire to, or they're not the kind of person that will ever manifest these things, or right. So a lot of times it's deconditioning a lot of this stuff. And this is why I always say, if anything is possible, what do you call it to create? To kind of get to that place where you're like 4 or 5 years old and you can just imagine and dream anything. You can fly, you can live in a castle, like to kind of access that inner state and and tune into that. And yeah, I think that's the thing I wanted to leave this part with is just that question of how to maintain that consistent focus, you know, on a daily basis. Um, and then if you lose sight or if you lose your way or, as we've been saying, miss the mark, right? How to just regain your focus without beating yourself up, without getting into all the stuff that isn't going to do anything positive for you. Um, just to get back up and keep focusing in the right direction. Um, yeah, I think that's a good resting point. And I'll just open it up to you guys if you have any reflections on anything I shared so far, any questions, any um, comments.
I think in some cases in my life, the thing when I've gotten more clear on what I wanted came right after having an experience that I really didn't
Mm.
want
Yeah,
or I didn't like,
yeah,
something really that was very depressing or upsetting. And And like I can remember being a teenager in Laguna Beach, and my dad was a ace fighter pilot in the Marine Corps. And but we were very like Christian oriented family too, and I just couldn't put together war and what I was learning in Sunday school. And in those days they had pictures of the Vietnam War, on the TV set every day, like, dead people and their names and their families crying, and they completely quit doing that. But I seeing that when I was younger really made me feel like I picked my biggest word for goal in life was peace, to that I really wanted to work towards peace, both inner peace and world peace somehow. So yeah, it's sometimes, yeah, you figure out what you want by knowing something you really don't like.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Um, remember Abraham Hicks saying, through the contrast, you access your rockets of desire,
Yeah.
right? So, and I find that quite often, like, it's like, why am I experiencing this thing that, why am I having this experience that's not what I want, quote unquote? But you're having it actually to show you what you want, right?
Yeah.
It's making it more clear what you want. So it's helpful in that way.
And then you have to be careful you don't focus more on what you don't like than on what you want, because like I'm in particular, I have a friend that, is very, very upset about the Gaza and the Palestinians and everything. But I can see so clearly that, um, she really, beats the drum of this is so horrible, this is so horrible, and so is horrible, and that is horrible. And she thinks of herself as a big advocate for peace. But it's a constant, like Esther Hicks says, whatever you beat the drum of, you're actually adding to the fuel. And if you beat the drum of people suck, government sucks, everything sucks, and then really find somebody who really does something that sucks and then magnify it. Look, the sucky thing this person did today, that I don't know. I know that doesn't work because I did that with my ex-husband and it didn't work. He just became more and more difficult to me the more I thought that way. So it's very important to know what you don't like. You can't put your head in the sand. You have to know that, but make sure you only spend this much time on that. And then, okay, well, what are you going to do from here? What are you going to change?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
I saw that lesson very clearly. Um, this goes back, wow, over 20 years. The uh, the invasion of Iraq, and I was very opposed to it, and I saw a lot of things that other people, everybody kind of sees the things now, that I saw at that time, as far as certain lies that were being told and so forth. So anyway, I was opposed to the war, um, and there was these things they call them anti-war rallies. So right off the bat, it's the wrong languaging. So there was these anti-war rallies, and the people would show up, and most of the people were very angry and I would say very violent. On a not necessarily a physical level. They weren't necessarily beating anybody up or anything. Although sometimes that stuff would happen too, but just on a conscious level, on a psychological level, you know, wanting to
Energetically.
wanting to cause people harm. You know, wanting
Oh,
to cause people.
yeah.
It goes back to you mentioned something earlier about seeing people as evil, or it's like that kind of a thing. Like, so this politician's evil, so let's whatever try to harm them or hurt them. It's like a lot, like and Jesus talks about this. Like, even if you're not physically harming somebody, if you're psychologically thinking about harming somebody, you know, it's an equivalent of the same thing, right? It's you're doing the same thing in your conscious level. Anyway,
Yeah.
the point is that um, what I saw was these, and they'd always lose. Like they would what they wanted would never actually happen. So I saw like they're actually creating more violence, right? They weren't creating more peace, right?
Yeah.
And the way to actually create more peace would be to be the embodiment of peace. Um, and that's how you would emanate peace into the world, and you would spread peace into the world. So yeah, I think that's true for whatever the thing is that we want to create or see, the Gandhi thing, be the change you want to see in the world, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very true. I wanted to touch on one other thing too, because I think it's just interesting and it's important. The idea of, because sometimes when we talk about like what do you want to become and focus on what you want to become, um, people will say like, well, what about just I just want to like accept myself as I am, you know? And I think accepting yourself as you are is the foundation because if but accepting yourself as you are isn't necessarily going to feel good. Like for example, like if you're an alcoholic, you might accept the fact that you're not, meaning like you acknowledge it or you accept it, or maybe you were in denial of it, right? So then the acceptance of it is actually what allows the transformation to become what you're called to. You can step into the higher vision of what you're called to become, and actually you can accept the vision of who you're called to become as well, right? So it's like, and I think the people who are really, the healers, the transformative agents, like for me, the way I feel like Jesus, for example, is able to heal people is he would see the highest and best in that person. He would see the divinity in that person. He would see the wholeness in that person, even if they didn't see it. If they weren't capable of seeing it, he could see it. And I think people that um, can make a real difference in people's lives, there's a love that's there where they're holding. So if someone has a vision for what they want to become, and they lose their way from that vision, it's really helpful if someone else can still hold that vision for them, right? And that's where prayer and these things comes into being. Like, I'm seeing the best in you and I'm holding that vision for you, even if sometimes you lose your way or sometimes you forget, that's the vision that you have for yourself. And I think that's what, to mention community, that's what, in the deepest level, like community is really for. So yeah, I wanted to bring that element in as well.
It's true that a ship's rudder is not effective unless the ship is moving. And in my life, I've found that um, just taking those first small steps towards something that you want to do or that you're aiming for, as you take each step or as you try something, the way opens up further as you continue to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I've discovered that God is faithful to slam doors shut in front of you if it's not the way for you to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, doors swing wide open many times, and you just keep moving. Um, and uh, I had a Robin. You mentioned that sometimes you get a vision when for something when you're suffering a lot of pain. I had a job that I'm a school teacher, and I had an assignment that I honestly did not think I was going to make it out alive through the end of the school year. I mean, I thought I'd have a psychological breakdown or something. It was fairly early in my teaching career, and I remember I had this this weird thing I would do. I'd get in the shower and I'd hold the shampoo bottle, maybe a big, almost full shampoo bottle, and I'd think to myself, when I'm using the last little bit of shampoo in this bottle, where will I be? Will I be in the same place, or will I be, moving into something different? And that weird little practice motivated me to make sure that I was moving and doing things that would change my situation eventually. And it did. It did. So I'll just contribute that.
Thanks,
You
Mark.
can't steer a ship that's not moving. You might, on the other hand, been I've been pretty regular in my life for decades of having a morning quiet time to pray and read, and um, that's a good foundation each day to kind of set your sights for the day. But that long term vision, just start moving, and uh, and then see what opens up.
Mhm. Yeah, a couple things to mind on that. So trusting the doors that open and the doors that close, right? So that's one where the ego, oh, but no, it's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be this way. And why is
Right.
it, So learning to trust that there is a larger, like a lot of times the way is being shown for us, but we're too um like belligerent. I don't know what the word is. Like, we don't want to see it. We don't
Bullheaded.
we want to fight it. Bullheaded, yeah. We want to fight it. So we make things a lot harder for ourselves because we just think we know better. Um, so the more you can kind of like have kind of be able to notice, okay, well, this is not the way it's supposed to go, and not don't keep banging on a door that's locked, you know, just maybe just look over this direction or this direction, and you'll see the doors open, over there, and just kind of follow the breadcrumbs, follow the bouncing ball, and that's one way to find the strategy to get to what your vision is, what your dream is. The other thing I was going to say that you brought up that I think is valuable to bring in is if you don't know how to get there, and a lot of times we don't initially because we've never been there before, so we don't know how to get there, right? Um, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid just to try something, and it might work, it might not work, it might work halfway, it might work part way. And then just keep refining the strategy as you experiment with different things and try different things, right? It's almost like a scientific approach, just
That's right.
uh, do an experiment, observe, record the record your findings, and then move forward again and keep going. And it's helpful to hear other people's experiences, other people's journeys, especially people that have been there before you, of course, and what their reflections are. That can be really valuable. And also sometimes um, your journey might be different than theirs, it'd be unique. So um, just being able to be open and to listen to doors that are open, doors that are closing, and what's working, what's not working, taking the guidance from others who've been there before you, and also knowing that there's that you're a unique person, and your path will be similar to others, but will be somewhat unique as well.
If I could just throw one more thing in there, that year uh, that was very difficult for me was a very formative year. Now that I look back on it,
Yeah.
I needed it. I
Yep.
needed to be humbled.
Yep.
God used it in many, many ways, but I was able to launch from that, and those experiences I had during that extremely difficult year were very valuable later on. So,
Yeah, I totally agree in my life, and I feel like that's generally the case, in
uh-huh.
people's lives when they look back, right? Maybe not so much when they're in it, but when they look back.
Will talks a lot about humility, and I'm with him on that. I think that uh, maturity and humility are really parallel processes. So,
Yeah, it's very interesting because one may think that with maturity comes more knowledge, which then would you would not need humility,
Yeah.
you know?
Puff you up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, you just think you know it all,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, I find it's actually the opposite. It's actually um, the more you mature, the less you know, but it's like a different kind of. It's a different kind
Mhm.
of. There's a wisdom is different than knowledge, right?
That's right.
So it's like instead of clinging to all the different facts and information, um, there's an integration of understanding, and then for me, there's a being able to connect in the moment and listen in the moment for like we talked about last week, that kind of guidance within. All right, Gio, everyone's excited for you to make a contribution. You're a big star. So if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, well, first thing I want to say is on the point of like humility as you grow in wisdom, I've kind of noticed that like the more that you like mature, the more that you learn and the more that you know, like the more you realize you don't know a lot. Because like I think a lot of people, what happens is that, they think that once they know everything, then that's it, But I think really what happens is that like the more you learn, you go to like, traveling is an example. Like you can go to different countries and you learn about these different cultures, but you realize like how much of the world you were not exposed to, how many cultures you're not familiar with, how many, languages that you don't know, how many different customs that you're not used to, right? So like that's kind of one thing I noticed with like maturing is that like when you're young and like naive, you kind of have this like big head on your shoulders, like, oh yeah, I know everything and um, I have everything figured out. And really, as you get older, you kind of realize that's not the case. Like you actually have a lot of things to learn. And, I think no matter what age you are, like there's still lessons to be learned. There's still mistakes that you can make. So that's one thing that I realized. Uh, but another thing I thought about too, because you were talking about sort of like having other people as a support to help you realize like to help you push you in the direction that you want to go. That actually happened to me this past weekend. When I was hanging out with my friend, he was telling me, like I was saying, we were kind of talking about different things, and he started a YouTube channel recently. Um, and he does like different stuff than I do. Like he does like, engineering stuff like that. But I was talking to him and he was, we were just talking about like, YouTube and content creation stuff. And I was telling him like, I haven't made content in like a really long time. And I remember when I used to make content, like I absolutely loved it. Like the feeling kind of as you were saying, Dad, like you kind of know what your passion is. Like you kind of know um the direction that you're supposed to go in because there's a feeling with it versus the things that you don't actually truly enjoy. It seems kind of forced. It seems like you're like stressing, you're trying to push yourself and it's not really working. But like for the things that you actually enjoy, there's a passion there. There's kind of like a flow state. And that's something that I've noticed for myself when I used to create content and I started creating content again, partly because my friend was telling me that I should do it. Um, but having that feeling, like that's how that's a sign I think that you're heading in the right direction. And I think yeah, it's really important going back to like that that boat analogy of like you kind of have to push the boat. I think sometimes you might have to have somebody else push the boat a little bit for you because sometimes you get stuck, and maybe like in a part of the lake that's a little bit shallow, you get stuck, right? And you're inside the boat. You might need somebody to push the boat out a little bit so then you could start rowing. And I think a lot of people that goes back to the humility aspect where like so some people have such like a big head, and this is something that was the case for me. Um, you know, a lot of people have a hard time asking for help. A lot of time people have a hard time being vulnerable, and I think this is especially the case for men. Like a lot of men have a hard time, you know, being open to receiving help and receiving, being part of a community and like opening up and receiving the help and the inspiration and the accountability that comes with having people there for you. And I'm really grateful that I have friendships and I have, family in which, they can be that source of support. They can be somebody who can say, hey, if this is something that you're really passionate about, you should continue with this, right? You should continue to do that thing if that's really what you feel passionate about and that's really what you enjoy. And I think there's so much external pressures for people to not do the things that they enjoy. For another thing really passionate about and I enjoy doing is making music. And I think a lot of people for things like when it comes to like things like music or even like art, right? There's a lot of people who are artists, right? There's a lot of people say like, don't do that. There's no money in that. Don't do the things that you enjoy doing. And those people end up living a life in which they're miserable, because they're doing something that they hate and they're doing it simply because other people told them that's what you should do. And that's what society is telling you that you should do. And you should do it, for all these material reasons and to have a status and to make other people happy. But at the end of the day, the question is, are you happy? Are you doing the things that you enjoy? Are you doing the things that you love? And I think a lot of people um, would be better off if they had somebody in their corner who said, hey, I actually think that you should do those things that you're passionate about. I actually think you should do those things that you love and pay attention to the way you feel when you do those things, because when you're not doing those things, you're going to feel miserable. And when you do those things, you're going to feel great. And if you really feel passionate about those things, and this is what my friend was telling me, like if you really feel passionate about that, then do it. Like what are you waiting for? Don't hold back. Um, do the things that you truly enjoy. So yeah, I think like it's important to have people who will stand in your corner and truly know who you are and the things that you love, because sometimes I think a lot of people get stuck in their own minds and they get so caught up in, maybe I shouldn't do this thing. There's the mind can create so many fears and so many there can be so many ideas of like, oh, what does this person think or what does that person think? But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to live with, at the end of your life, you have to live with the decisions you made. And you're the one who made those decisions. So at the end of your life, you can't say, oh yeah, because so and so told me I can't do this, that's why I didn't do it, right? You have to face that accountability for yourself, at the end of your life. And I think like that's something that also pushes me as well. Like I think the idea that I could possibly regret these things immensely at the end of my life, or regret not doing, certain things. Um, I feel like that in itself is a motivator, because that tells me that, if I'm really going to just not do these things just because somebody tells me not to do them, then I'm going to end up living with that regret. I'm going to end up living, what if I did it? What if I actually listened to myself? What if I actually listened to my friend telling me, hey, you should do that? Or, somebody else telling me, hey, you should do that, right? There were people in my corner. And, I think when you have people that can remind you of the things that you truly are passionate about and the direction you should truly head in, that is something very powerful. So,
Beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, a few things follow up on there. So yeah, one clear as far as like what's the right path for me, what's my true dream, authentic dream, what's my authentic vision, what's my authentic way forward. Fear versus love, right? You know, being pulled toward love, as opposed to contracting in fear. And it feels different in your body. You feel they feel different in your body. So I think that's one key indicator is like, am I operating from fear or am I operating from love? And love, it's tricky because love is also scary sometimes. So it's like it may kind of feel a little bit scary, right? But it's rooted in love. Um, so that's the way to go. So it can actually feel like there is a fear that's blocking you from the love. So you have to face the fear and move through the fear to get to that deeper level of the love that you're being pulled toward. Um, I was thinking when you're talking about someone says like this lights me up, right? Or this lit me up, right? And like I was feeling like, yeah, because it's literally feeling like your body is being filled with light. When you that true vision, that true dream, that true sense where you're going to, it's like you're being filled with light. And the more you follow that true vision and the more you step into that authentic, essence of who you're called to be or being pulled into that, the more it feels like you're being filled with light. So that's something to notice and be mindful of, and that's a good thing. That feels good. I think the asking for help is big, right? So this is something that, like, in the people that I work with, talk about quite often. So there's this idea that if you need to ask for help, it means you're a failure. This is like an idea that people have in their minds, right? But actually, it's really the opposite. Like, if you look at the people that are the most successful, they're not afraid to ask for help at all, and they're getting all kinds of help and support from like hundreds and hundreds of people. You know, so it's really the inverse. It's really the people that are successful, the people that aren't afraid to ask for help and have a lot of support, have a lot of help. You know, um, and the people who are, let's say, failing, at least for the moment, don't have help and aren't asking for help. Right. So I think that's important to keep that in mind because people think it's the opposite, but it's really not. Asking for help is, you know, pretty critical for moving into success in whatever you're endeavoring in and having that humility.
I think therapists have helped me a lot, here and there in my life. I I haven't gone to life coaches that much, except for Brian a little bit. But but the times when I was really struggling, just having somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off of, because a lot of times you have these things going on in your head that are kind of crazy, and when you tell a person what you're thinking, they'll go, "What? You know, is that true?" And then you go, "Oh, well, maybe it isn't."
Yep.
Also having mentors or, I mean,
Mhm.
having uh heroes, just being able to look around and say, who is living the kind of life that I would like to have,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, they have this kind of job where they get to be at home, or
Yep.
they have a nice office with a view, or and they
Yep.
have friends and
We were talking about this last night. I talk about this quite often too. Um, you see somebody who's doing what you aspire to do. Maybe they have, and again, this is just appearance. It could be different, we're only seeing a fragment of someone's life, but let's just say what we're noticing, it seems like they have a great relationship. It seems like they're wealthy and abundant. It seems like they're in great shape. It seems like they're doing a job they love, right? Cedric, it seems like they're incredibly spiritually connected. So a great question to ask is, do I feel inspired or do I feel jealous? Right? That's a key question to ask. So if it's like, first of all, can you celebrate their success and can you feel inspired, that inspires you to step into something a level that you haven't gone into yet. And if you can feel inspired, then it will pull you into that. And if you feel jealous, then it's like, why, then there's all this sort of, um, bitching about them and why do they have this and I don't have this. And that's going to keep you stuck, right? Where you are. So I think it's a really valuable thing to feel into. And a lot of times, like, this is good practice on social media, for example. People are posting about this and that, and because people tend to post about the things that are going well and not the things that are going bad, in their life. So, you see this and that, and um, do you feel inspired? Do you feel jealous? You know, and then, like I was mentioning earlier, not only do when people feel jealous, they can even go to like wishing harm upon the person, or these kind of thoughts come in their mind. Um, so being mindful of that and being present to shift that into the energy of inspiration, then propel you to, and then you'll be grateful that, like Robin said, you have people that you can look up to, you have people that you can aspire to, and I think it's different. I think this is an important point too. Like, um, there can be an aspect of someone's life that they're further along than you, so you aspire to step into that aspect. But there could be a thing where so happens where people idealize somebody and then they're crushed that they're not the person that they thought they were, or they hate the person. Then this, so that's another thing to be mindful of, right? It's like don't idealize the person, but just see, okay, they're further along in this aspect, and they can inspire me to access these levels in this area of my life that I haven't been able to access yet, right? And that's a good thing. That's great that we have people like that.
Another little practice besides morning practice, which is really great, is an evening practice where you just look over your day and you kind of pat yourself on the back for any little thing you did. I put my shoes in the closet next to each other, or I washed the dishes finally, and give yourself some credit, because we tend to think of the things we didn't do, but it's nice to be a champion to yourself, to be your own best friend. That is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I also want to add to when you were talking about the comparing about comparing yourself to other people, I was kind of reminded of this quote from Marcus Aurelius. Not really a quote, but just like I remember it's like a kind of a story that he was telling where there is this wrestler that he saw. And for those of you who don't know Marcus Aurelius is, he was like one of the lead founders, not like founders, but one of the philosophers that spoke on Stoicism, which was like an ancient Greek philosophy that basically was mainly, it was similar to Buddhism, but it was mainly about like focusing on things that are in your control versus, the things that are outside your control, which if you are constantly worried about the things outside your control, then it causes unnecessary suffering, mentally.
He
But
was also a Roman emperor, right?
well, yeah, yeah, he was a Roman emperor. I mean, yeah, he wasn't like the OG like Stoics, like Epictetus and some of the other guys. But yeah, there's this one thing that he spoke of, and this is something the Stoics talk about. They talk a lot about comparison and how it causes a lot of unnecessary suffering, obviously, because people say comparison is the thief of joy. But yeah, one thing that there's this one story he talked about where, Marcus Aurelius, he was like a very surprisingly, he was actually very sickly. Like he had a lot of like physical ailments. And I remember there was this one thing where he said he saw this wrestler, and this wrestler was like super fit, very strong. He was like, one of the best wrestlers in like the Roman Empire. And he thought to himself, he's like, this guy has a body that, I can only wish for. He has the strength that I can only wish for. But does he have virtue? Does he have, the ability to lead like, that I have? Does he have these other qualities that I have? And that's kind of like, I think, something that a lot of people, going back to what Robin was saying with like, kind of being the champion for yourself when you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, especially if there's some things that, is good to aspire to, but there are some things that people have that maybe, are just something that they have and you can obtain, right? It's just something that, you might have not been born with, or it's something that, at the time being, you might not have, right? So I think like one thing that a lot of people can do when you get into that state of comparison is ask yourself, like, what do I have, right? What are the things that I love about myself and the things that I'm not thinking about? Because, you can compare, oh, this person has more money than me, right? Or this person's more famous than me. But you have to ask yourself, like, are they as good of a person as you are? Do they treat people as kindly as you do? Do they have as good relationships as you have, right? Like there's a lot of parts of people's lives that they do not acknowledge, places where they actually are, they have a lot of value in, like there's parts of people's character that they don't give enough recognition to. And I think, that's something that a lot of people can do when they are comparing, because I'm somebody personally, like my temperament, I'm somebody who compares myself a lot. And in some ways it can be a good thing because it motivates me and it drives me forward. But also it can be something that causes a lot of insecurities and causes a lot of, you know, mental stuff going on. And, when I look at myself and I look at, oh, these are things that I do have, these are things that I have achieved. These are things that I have put in work in, and I've seen results and abilities that I have naturally. And when I do that, I stop worrying so much about, oh, what are these other people, these other people are doing better than me, or what are the things that I don't have that these people have? Because again, that will just make you miserable, right? So
I
I think,
think there's one thing that's valuable to add to the show, which is that so if somebody, if I have it, first of all, what's my goal? What's my vision, right? So let's say my vision is to be, physical fitness. I have certain goals for that. So then it can be helpful to have, as Robin said, a hero, right? We'll use that term. So this guy's my hero. He's more physically. So the hero is not going to be someone who's less physically fit than you. It's going to be someone who's more physically fit than you. That's going to be your hero, right? So you choose your hero. So so the first point I think is your pay is a good point, which is the same. I was making the same point, which is like he's your hero as far as physical fitness. He's not your hero in like maybe spiritually or maybe, with his relationship or with his whatever, right? He's your hero in this particular area. So don't get that twisted. And, you could have a uh if you could be a person who's musical and someone could be your musical hero and they could be like, a horrible person in their personal life, right? But they are a great musician, so they inspire you in that way, right? So it's like being able to make those distinctions, I think, is important. And also you could have just to say you could have, and I would say you should have someone who's your hero spiritually, right? Someone who inspires you on that level, but maybe they're not as strong on the physical fitness level, right? So it's like being able to have that, be able to make these distinctions. Um, and I think this is really important, which is when you have your hero, they're pulling you towards like a higher vision of something inside yourself. Um, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, or it doesn't. It's not a reason to get into a self-loathing place. Like beating yourself up for your worth. So I think that's important to like be mindful of and not get caught in those like downward spirals. Um, it's like you're being called to step into this higher vision, but it doesn't mean you as a human being are a bad person because you're not. The way someone explained it to me one time is like if somebody like if you imagine like train and you're on a train and someone else is on a train and their train left like 2 hours before your train did. So they're at the next stop and you're not at that stop yet. The only reason they're at that stop is because they started before you did, right? It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means like they've been at it longer than you, right? Now you could say, oh, yes, some people are more gifted. I understand. And that's the other thing I want to say too is um, you may never get to it. Like, say, for example, like I watch an NBA basketball player and I say, wow, that inspires me to be a better basketball player, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to be as good as they are, but it inspires me to be better. And as long as I'm on the path of becoming a better person, whatever the area is, then I'm on the right track, you know. But having that mindfulness of like, yeah, I'm on the path of, personal transformation and improvement. But it doesn't mean I have to have some kind of self-loathing about myself, you know, as a human being. Right. And I think that's where the spiritual connection comes in, which we've talked a lot about in the past. of, we can say it in different language, but you are a child of God, you are of the divine essence, regardless of what you do or don't do. That's just a fact you realize the more you tune into the spiritual truth of who you really are. And so then you're just, you're called to certain goals and visions and dreams that you're given, but it doesn't change the essence of, your divine essence of who you really are.
Yeah, I think one key thing is like to realize if it's a positive or negative feeling. Because one thing is like there's times where I've looked at like other people and I've really felt inspired and I'm like, wow, I really like for example, like David Goggins, right? Like every guy sees David Goggins and they're like, that guy's amazing. He can
So
run like,
explain
100.
who that is for people who don't know.
So David Goggins is like he wrote this book called Can't Hurt Me and he was in the Navy SEALs. He did like the I think they call it like Hell Week. I think he did it like 3 times. Which is like kind of unheard of because like most people do it once and that's enough, you know. But he had to do it like 3 times. And yeah, he's just like an all around like very, very like tough guy. Like, runs m miles, more than most humans can even
Doesn't he do
bear.
like 100 miles, 100-mile races or something? He does some crazy number of miles. These races he does.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's like 100. Yeah, I don't know. It's like insane levels of like,
So he's
you
somebody
know,
who's like testing the limits of what's possible for a human being, and achieving these goals he sets for himself.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I think like that's something that I've kind of noticed like you have to really see like if the comparison is making you feel like motivated and like making you feel like inspired or if it's making you feel like bad because like there's also something especially in my generation like in Gen Z there's a lot of comparison. People like a lot of women, for example, have like a lot of insecurities about like their body. Like my body's not, good enough. And because I think a big reason is social media. A lot of women see other women, and this is becoming a problem for men too. A lot of men get insecure about, I'm not good looking enough. I don't have the perfect enough body and all these different things. And I think it's important to recognize, like, this is also goes back to stoicism. Like, is that actually helping you? Or are those thoughts really helping you? Comparing yourself in a manner that doesn't really help you. Because there's ways that you can compare yourself where it does nothing but damage. It does nothing but leads you to actually, going in a spiral, like spiraling downwards and ending up very insecure and actually causing you more issues in your life. And then there's a type of inspiration, which I wouldn't even call a comparison, that on the other hand inspires you to do great things, inspires you to be a better person, inspires you to uh like bring yourself into a positive direction. And I think it's just important to recognize like are you like when you're looking at other people and the things that they're doing in their life, the things that they achieved, the qualities that they have, is it something that is bringing like benefit to your life, or is it something that's causing harm in your life? And like the question is like the actual results, because if you're actually seeing results from, like I know like I only follow certain people on Instagram because I know that those people like I'm going to see their content and it's going to motivate me. It's going to inspire me. So I think it's like important to recognize like, are you actually seeing results from looking at these people and being inspired by these people, or is it causing you more harm than good? I think that's like a important thing to recognize.
That's
Mhm.
always a good question. Sure.
One thing I did that was helpful too, it's right along these same lines, is I decided I really wanted to be an artist early on, and somebody said, find somebody who's doing what you want to be doing. They're already doing it, and interview them. Um, maybe it might be hard to interview somebody who's really huge name or something, but even anybody who's just even a little further along, and people love it. They're really flattered. You just take like 10 minutes of their time, and how did you get to this position? And what suggestions do you have for young artists or young and even doing like picking out 5 people and doing that is a huge help.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments, reflections?
I want to know more about Arnold.
Arnold is someone who does not like to speak much in the
Okay.
circle. He likes to be quiet, but he likes to tune in and listen. He did share one time, which was health and wellness hacks. Remember that one? I don't know if you were here for that one.
Yes, I
He
did. I was
shared
very inspired.
he
I was very
shared
inspired by his
about
story.
the hyperbaric chamber
Uh-huh.
that made a difference in his life.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
What do you want to know?
Do you what things make you happy? What do you like to do day to day that gives you joy?
Oh, I like the outdoors. And I go hiking about 4 to 6 miles every day with my dog.
Wow, that's a long hike.
He's a champion Portuguese water dog.
so let me just share a quick story. So Arnold was at the New Year's retreat, and he has some insecurities about being older than everybody else.
Yeah.
So he says, hey, let me show you guys a spot where you can get into nature. So they're like, okay. So a bunch of them, Jeff and Jacob and all the guys. I think Regina was in that crew and other people. I wasn't, but a bunch of them came out. So okay, so they all get their boots on and everything. And he takes them like up some steep thing and they're like sweating and they can barely breathe and they come back and they're like, oh my God, Arnold almost killed us with this hike he took us on all the way up these spots in different places. So that was pretty funny.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to challenge myself to work out more too, to go to the gym and I'm feeling a lot better physically the more I do.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody gave me the tip of drinking a little Celtic salt in your water. You know, everybody says, "Oh, don't drink salt," but actually that is really helpful for your body to keep hydrated. It's sort of a natural thing you can do to keep
Yeah.
hydrated and it helps joints move better and
I think that the processed salt is what's bad for you.
oh
The
yeah,
the
that's definitely
natural sea salt, Celtic salt,
mhm.
Himalayan sea salt, all that stuff is good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is your dog near you, Arnold? Is your dog in the house where we could see him?
You're on mute. Oh, there you
Hold
go.
on. Hold on. Come here.
Oh, good.
Come here. Come here, buddy. Come here. He's a Portuguese water dog right there.
Oh, that's
I don't know,
cute.
kind of blurry, but
What's his name?
it's a weird name. Kuiper, Kaiper. It's for a Hawaiian wave break in Hawaii called a kai poi.
Oh,
I used to do
okay.
triathlons in Hawaii, but I couldn't call him kai poi. So kai means ocean. I put a
Uh,
PR on the end, and he's a champion. He's
wow.
he breeds,
Well, that's cool. So you
and
can make a little money that way.
well, the co-owner breeder I make some money when he does it, but the breeder is kind of in charge of his breeding.
Oh, yeah.
He lives up in Johnson City near Gray,
Oh, okay.
far from Regina.
Does he sleep with you at night?
Some he likes the cold floor better, but he
Oh,
gets up.
yeah. I'm
But
so nosy asking who you sleep with.
Who do you sleep with?
well,
That's
well,
funny.
never mind.
Let's leave that there.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right.
Actually,
Anyway, I hang out on here so I feel younger, and maybe one day I'll be able to talk like y'all do.
Oh,
Anyway.
I think I learned to talk more by going to Al-Anon meetings. That's a sister to 12 step. I don't know. I've been going to those meetings for like 18 years now, and it really helps loosen up the talking part.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sharing authentically, sharing vulnerably.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yep.
That's one thing I admire. I'm self-conscious about talking. I don't know why. I've always been kind of that way.
Believe
But
me, I was too. I was such a shy person. Oh
I
my
like,
God, my neck would like ache and ugh.
Well, Mark's son, Jeff, he had a lot of anxiety about, in fact, he wouldn't talk here at all in the beginning. And I remember the first time, or one of the first times he shared, he was saying, I feel really afraid to talk and my heart's racing. And so I'm going to do it. And he talked and he's, talked again. And now he's facilitating these meditation Mondays on Monday and really stepping into it more and more. So just a great example of if you're called to something, right? If you're called to something, then, face your fear. And the more you do it, the easier and easier it will become.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, it can feel really scary, but and I think it makes you feel good inside when you do it. Like even if you, let's say this as an example speaking, let's say you do it and maybe the words don't come out quite right and it wasn't perfect, but you did it, you faced your fear. So you feel good that you faced that fear. And every time we face a fear and we do it anyway, we're stepping more and more into our own empowerment.
Yeah, I remember there was a time when
Process.
I went a long period without painting, and I had been pretty good, and then I just didn't paint for a long time. And getting back started back up, I think it was after I had kids. I just was so afraid to because I wanted to be right at the same level where I was. And finally, I just said, I'm going to give myself an A plus just for finishing a painting, just finishing it. And I did that, and boy, that was the big. Just I was off to the races after that.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up, y'all. I really appreciate y'all being here. I thought it was really great. A lot of great insights and wisdom came for it. We
Can
have
I
something,
share one thing, Dad, before you end it?
yeah, we have something from Darren in the chat too. Using our voice is like learning how I play an instrument. The more we do it, the better we become. Beautiful. Thank you, Darian. Gio, last word. It comes from you.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I used to really struggle with social anxiety, and it seems like hearing me talk and like, it seems like it's effortless for me, but at a certain point, it actually wasn't. I really struggled with like, um, kind of just like reaching out to people, meeting new people. And there's this thing in psychology, it's called exposure therapy. And basically what that is like, somebody who has a fear of anything, let's say somebody has like a fear of snakes, if you gradually expose them to snakes, like not showing them a full snake right away, but let's say like you play a sound of a snake and then you like show them a picture and then you have a snake, but you're like standing like 10 feet away and you move slightly closer. Over time, the person realizes that like the snake is actually not a threat. Like it's actually not that bad. They can hold it, it's not biting them on the face, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. And that's kind of like something that I did. I would take like small steps, I would like say hi to somebody in the elevator. I would talk to the cashier. And over time, I actually got so comfortable that I was able to like go out and like talk to people and meet new friends and like do all the things that I wish, back before then that I wish I could do. So I think that's, in terms of like socializing, I really think like just taking small steps is key because like they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with, a few steps. So I think that's like really important. And also for making content, that was also the case for me too. I was really nervous, like my first videos. And then as I started making more videos, um, I got really comfortable like talking on camera. So just thing for you guys, if you guys want to like get more comfortable, um, making videos, like whether you have like you make like a YouTube or something or anything, whether you make any type of like content where you're just talking to a camera, that really helps with like speaking and like, you know, just being more comfortable talking in general.
Yeah. I think some of the things you said with Brian, I don't know if I've watched your content all by itself, but it was fantastic. I mean, you guys were talking about things that people were not talking about that were like elephants in the room, and it's so needed to be talked about, you know. So I would say keep going because that it's so important to bring things out, you know, like
Yep.
that.
Amen. We
Mhm.
shall keep going.
Yes.
We shall all keep going. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you all so much. And thanks to
Thank you,
everybody
Brian.
who's tuning in on the replay. And
Thank you.
yeah, see you next Thursday, same time, same
Have a
bat channel, same
wonderful
bat
week.
time. Thank you. Same to you all.
Bye.